It's a
David Land
video. So it's the Big Motor Small Blade podcast. It's an amazing week to be on this show, David. So we got David Land here. We teased it on social media. The man, the myth, the horse legend.
Go Colts! My voice is gone, guys. I was screaming all night last night.
Yeah, they look pretty good.
Go Colts.
Yeah.
They beat the damn Patriots for the first time since 2009, the AFC Championship game. It was
Holy
a great
shit.
Great night last night.
Oh, God. Big Motor, Small Blades are back.
They are.
That's fun. It's amazing. We're going to talk about that for sure. First off, David, thank you for coming on. It's great to have you, the face of everything. No,
I don't know about that.
Yeah. The face of something. We'll get into it here in a minute.
Oh, God.
All right. So we'll just jump right into it. David, I want to know a little bit more about you. We'll start from the beginning. What got you into racing?
Oh, man. Well, so my family was always running, or not running, but going to the Indianapolis 500. They've been going since, really, a lot of my family members have been going since like not the 30s, but
The
like
30s.
Not the 30s. I'm sure there's some ancestors of mine that went in the 30s, but really kind of my nuclear family started going as early as the 1950s and 60s. But really, as a tradition, we started buying our tickets in like 1984, 1985. And really, we just kind of carried that through all the way until now. And then, kind of as I was a young man, a young kid, 3 years old, my dad started working in the IRL, which is the Indy Racing League, which was the opposite of kart. And we could talk for an hour about the politics of that. But, I just was around it a lot as a young man, as a young kid. And I saw, we taped like all the shows that Dad and his cars were on. And, and then I would just watch those nonstop. Like, that's why I'm a Buddy Lazier fan, is because we had the highlight reel of the 1996 Indy 500, and I just memorized that tape. And, and then I got like the Micro Machines 1996 Indy 500 set, which I have one of those down there. But I played with that nonstop. And actually, I kind of taught myself racing through playing with those cars, like strategy, pit stops. What would happen if someone pitted, in lap 3 of a race and they cycled to the back and all these sort of things. So yeah, I mean, it's always been a thing with me. I could tell 100 more stories about like childhood racing things that got me started, but I mean, it's just always been there for me.
Wow. All right. So yeah, kind of like any other young kid playing with their cars and kind of learning racing. That's how I learned to count and like colors and shit, was through that.
Is that why you can only count to 99?
Yes. That's exactly why. Until NASCAR Thunder 03 came out and I could count to 100 and something.
Oh my God. I was about to say, kids these days are going to be really confused because, there's this recent trend of putting zeros in front of numbers now, it seems like the last, 10, 15 years. It's like,
yeah,
everyone's going to go to kindergarten and be like, where's the 06?
Yeah, exactly. I used to put them at the back. I put cars in number order. They go to the back. You got an imaginary one in front of you, guy.
I always
Screw
put those
you, Jerry Nadeau.
I always put those before everything, so maybe I was the weird one, but
it depends. It depends what time of the month it was. All
right.
So your dad worked in the IRL. I want to know about that. How did he get there? What was his role? And so did that make you an IRL loyalist? I imagine.
No, we'll get into that. So I'll answer the first part first because I can go on about the IRL forever. So my dad worked for a paint company, and that paint company sponsored a team called PDM Racing, whose driver was John Paul Jr., who recently, unfortunately, passed away. That paint company jumped on board. Actually, the PDM in reality stands for Paul Diatlovich Motorsports, but they jokingly called themselves the poor dumb mechanics.
That's where that come
yes,
from. Oh,
yes,
shit.
the poor dumb mechanics. So my dad's company sponsored the poor dumb mechanics, and because he was one of the people who was interested in racing, he was managed to get himself involved in that program. Well, so 96 and 97, he was with PDM, working on the kind of sponsorship side. And then in 1998, there was an opportunity to actually be a team manager at a team called Emke Racing, which was, the driver was Tice Carlson. He didn't last very long in that position. He actually quit during the month of May. There was a lot of dysfunction in that team. They did manage to get a top 10 finish at Walt Disney World Speedway because Dad told Tice, just stay out of trouble. And it doesn't matter how many laps down we go because everyone else is going to crash. And as it turned out, that's exactly what happened. They got a top 10 out of it. But that was kind of the highlight of that short experiment.
Wow. That's awesome. So like, how did he worked in the IRL. So he worked on a teams in the
On
IRL.
a team.
Okay.
Yeah, not in the IRL.
Yeah.
I'm not that connected.
That was what I was. Yeah, I was about to say. That's why I was kind of. Okay, cool. So,
Yes.
So as a kid growing up, I guess you were born what 93, something
93.
like that.
July
Yeah,
10th,
93.
1993.
July 10th. So growing up, how cool is it like having your dad? Like, did you get to go to any other races other than 500? Or
No,
was
I
it
didn't.
just
I didn't
kinda, he
even.
was
I mean,
gone?
I didn't go to the 500 until I was 8.
wow.
2002 was my first race. So
Okay.
it was just something he did. I mean, I didn't even think that hard about it. I mean, it was kind of neat that he was involved, but I didn't know, I didn't know any better, right? You're not like, at that point, you're not just like, you are almost jaded because you don't understand how cool that is and how tough it is to be involved. And, that's the interesting point that you made, in the last question is like, well, was I an IRL loyalist? Well, not really, because we had a subscription to something called IndyCar Racing Magazine, and it actually turned into Indy and Championship Racing Magazine later. But we got this magazine, and I would flip through it, and I would find myself more interested in the kart series because I just liked how those cars looked, how they sounded. It just seemed a lot more exotic and exciting to me. And I think back to the races I remember the most watching on TV, not on tape, because we had a lot of IRL races on tape, but the ones I actually remember watching live are like Alex Zanardi passing Brian Herta in 1996 at Laguna Seca, the amazing 3-wide finish at Portland in 1997, in which Mark Blundell in the rain, there's like 3-wide with him and Jill DeFerrin and Raul Boesel. And I remember those sort of races. And then I realized, wait a second, as a kid, I kind of subconsciously recognized what the better product was. But you don't think about those things as a kid. But at the same time, like the Indianapolis 500 was always the biggest race for me. Like I memorized everybody who was in that race every single year. And I would, again, like binge watch the highlight film they put out every year, just over and over and over and over again. So, obviously, like, as I got a little bit older, I maybe became more biased towards the IRL but again, probably because of that, it was because of the fact that more of the stronger teams were kind of coming over from the kart series and kind of raising the profile of the Indy Racing League. So, it was an interesting time to grow up, certainly if you're an IndyCar fan, because there's not many people. That's the thing that I've realized is that from my generation, there's not very many people, young people, who stuck through and watched all of it. People are kind of rediscovering it now that IndyCar has kind of gotten its shit together. But, for a while there, it was a rough time to be a fan.
Do you think you being a kid and kind of just taking everything in and just being like, this is cool because, that made you stick through it?
Absolutely.
Or
absolutely. Because, as a kid, like you understand a little bit of what's going on. Like, obviously, like I could go read a program from 1995 and go, oh, hey, Michael Andretti was here in 1995 and he didn't show up in 1996, but I'm still watching him on TV driving Indy cars, but he's not coming to Indianapolis anymore. So like, that stuff and you understand even then, I mean, you're like, oh, this sucks because, it would be nice to have all the best drivers and the best cars at the speedway. But it wasn't like the intensely political thing I'm sure it was for a lot of adults. It was just like, okay, well, I'll watch, racing is on TV, I'll watch it. It really didn't matter what it was. It was just like, it's exciting, like you said, because you're a young person and you see, oh, it's cool stuff. I like this.
Awesome. All right. That's interesting. I've always wanted to know like what your dad did and like how everything happened for you and how you got into racing. I guess it was like everyone from a young age. Seth, you got anything for him?
Yeah. So
I'm trying to get my notes together.
Kind of piggybacking off that, kind of when did you start maybe branching out into other racing series? Was it a bit later? Was it not too long after?
It was from the start.
From the start.
From the start. I mean, I can remember watching the 97 Daytona 500 and things like that. I mean, drag racing, sports cars, just everything. I mean, I watched everything. It didn't matter. It was all part of the sport for me. I mean, it was all exciting. It was all cool. And I loved all of it. I had diecast cars of everything. I had NASCAR, I had sprint car. I had a whole field of sprint cars, which unfortunately, because a lot of the sprint cars stuff that I got to see on TV was just like crash highlights. Those sprint cars didn't last very long, unfortunately. But yeah, I had everything and I was into everything. And, I still am, as you guys can probably tell.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. All right, cool.
Awesome.
So like you watched everything. When was your goal to always be working in racing, or was it more of just a hobby when you were younger? Was it always like, I want to eventually have some sort of involvement?
Up until very recently, I was not a person who really thought very far ahead. I always had an interest in doing it, but I didn't have any of the tools to be involved. Like, my connections to the sport dried up in 1998. So I really didn't have kind of an in, and I really didn't have any kind of guidance on how to be involved. I know there were times where I was really kind of strongly telling my parents that like, hey, can we get a go-kart? Can we go racing? And it just, nothing ever really came of it. I definitely wanted to be involved, but I never thought like, this is the crazy thing. And this may be some advice for some younger people who are watching this, is that, in school, I really didn't know what I was doing or what my direction was. Like, I was just kind of like floating through, but what you want to do in life will eventually, you'll get to it, as long as you're not like actively like screwing up your life. And even if you are screwing up your life, and sometimes it kind of comes back around, because it's weird, because like, I remember at the end of high school, and now this is almost 10 years ago now, but like, I wasn't sitting there going, oh yeah, I want to go to college and this is going to be my major. Like I actively didn't want to go to college. But also I didn't know what I was going to work as a job. It wasn't like I was like, okay, I'm going to get into racing and this is what, this is the path I'm going to take. My life has been so weird, like, getting to where I am now, because I shouldn't be where I am right now, because really I should be some screw up, still living at home, and I'm not. And that's kind of weird, but yeah, it just, but that is the thing too, is that a lot of people throughout life said to me like, oh, you should be working in racing, or you should be, the historian in the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, or things like that. And I was like, oh, come on. Like, or you should be on TV covering I'm like, no, I remember thinking that, just going, what are you talking about? Like, I'm not good enough for that. Are you crazy? And I still don't think that. I'm now, doing what I'm doing, but like, it's sometimes you have imposter syndrome. Certainly, because I sometimes sit there and I go, man, I am so goddamn lucky that I'm where I am right now.
Awesome. Does that come from starting on social media more, or just because you don't think in a million years that anything like that would happen?
Well, I will say this. There was a point in my life where I was living in my uncle's attic, and I was broke and I just dropped out of college and my parents had split up and I was really in a bad spot in life and I really had no direction. And I realized I was at the bottom. So I kind of realized that I had this YouTube channel and I had some skills from high school where I had worked in journalism and I'd worked in broadcasting and I had some tools in my toolbox. And I said to myself, well, what would happen if I started making videos about racing? And I'm sure you guys will remember one of the first things I started doing, because I realized people wanted to see it, was review the NASCAR Authentics. And in a lot of ways, that kind of helped me not only make a little bit of money to survive, but also taught me how to make videos, how to make videos that people wanted to watch, how to talk about things that kept people engaged in a video that otherwise is just you going, oh, here's a Chevy SS. It's painted slightly different than it was the last time. Like things like that. And then I started reading comments, especially when I started doing like gameplay videos, that they're like, hey, we really, like the videos about like doing NASCAR 15, like the races are fun, but it's really cool when you start talking about real world racing things and what you think of it. And I'm like, then the light bulb kind of went off in my head. It's like, why don't I, because at that time in YouTube, there was a lot of like commentary channels and stuff. And I said, well, why don't I do something similar to, kind of what at the time, and it's going to sound silly because of where these guys ended up, but like, why don't I do something similar to like what Leafy is here or like iDubbbz are doing, but do it with a racing slant and just talk about topics in racing? Because at that point, there was no more Speed Channel and there really wasn't anybody in the racing media who was kind of stepping up and filling that niche. So I said, okay, there may be an opportunity here to try to do this. Let's see if it works. And let me put myself out there, put my face on these videos and see if I can't gain some traction. So that's kind of where it came, because it was just kind of desperation. It was like realizing, no, you are literally living in an attic. No one's ever going to take you seriously in racing. What can you do in the position that you are in right now with the tools that you have to get where you want to be?
Interesting. That's interesting that you said earlier you weren't a forward thinker, because I've always looked at you and thought like you were always ahead of where like no one was thinking to review Authentics. And then it seemed like you made that switch to actually covering racing at like just the right time. So that was just interesting. How did your YouTube channel start? Because it wasn't just Authentics. What was it before then?
You're really putting me on the spot.
I am.
So YouTube used to be a very different platform.
Yes, it did.
it was a very interesting time because it was, it's just a place where you screwed around, you put stuff up that you said, because one thing that I was in school, I may not have been a good student. I may not have been a forward thinker at the time, but I was definitely a creative person. I was always disappointed that there wasn't like a creative writing class in high school. And eventually there actually was, and I was glad I could take it. But, that's kind of why I ended up in journalism, because I wanted to like write. And so one of the things I was able to do, because I had an interest in Star Wars, is that I was seeing these videos. There was a big trend on YouTube in like 2008, which was you do Star Wars, Clone Wars battles with Lego figures. So I had some Lego Star Wars guys and I made some videos. They're cringy as all hell, but it was practice. You make a stop motion video and you put in the work editing, voicing it, learning editing programs. So it was kind of weird because I treated my YouTube channel for a very long time as just like something where I would just kind of randomly put stuff up as I was kind of there was no goal to it. There was no structure. It was like, did I film the end of the Indy 500? Okay, I'll put that up. Did I make a Nerf war video at school? I'll put that up. I'll put a school project up. It wasn't like thinking, oh yeah, man, there's some big goal at the end of the rainbow for this. And at the time, it wasn't a business. There was no way to monetize. You thought of it as a completely different thing. It was really just like a social media platform which you're screwing around on. That there wasn't like a professional side to it yet. And that's the crazy thing. And I guess one advantage I've had on YouTube is that I've been around so long that I have seen the website change and kind of understand where it's headed and where it's been and what works and what doesn't. So, and that goes back to your point of talking about like how I've been ahead of the curve on a few things. One of the things that I kind of tell myself about YouTube is, you know, and it's tougher now because there's so many more people doing YouTube, but I kind of look at it and say, you should make the content that you search for and can't find, because there used to be points, it's a little bit less nowadays, but you would search for something on YouTube and you could find no videos on it. And you go, man, I'd really like to watch a video on XYZ subject. It's not there. Well, that's because it's time for you to make it. Because other people are, because humans are like 92% the same. Like we are almost all the same. There's just a little bit of difference between all of us. So chances are you're not as unique as you think you are. And there's a bunch of people searching for the same thing you are and coming up with nothing. If you're the one who gets to that finish line first and makes that content, all of those people who are searching for that subject are going to be watching your videos on it.
Well, it's perfect. That kind of sets me up for like kind of my next question, because you talk about you got to find your niche. You got to find what makes you different. And it seems like in the past, 3, 4, 5 years that more people are doing what you're doing. For instance, me and Seth are trying to, not exactly the same, but the racing, like YouTube platform, podcasting, things like that, it's almost getting oversaturated. I'm sure a lot of your opinions can sometimes be somewhat controversial.
Little spicy.
But they get you the hits on Twitter and people know your mind and you're smart. You know what you're doing, right? Do you look at that as like, is that like an intentional thing, or are you just speaking whatever, comes out? And
I mean, I'm not intentional. So I give my opinions.
Don't intentionally make content. Yeah.
Yeah. I give my opinions on things, and a lot of times I don't hold back. Do I, and there is sometimes, I won't say I ever like take an opinion just to be controversial.
Yeah,
there are definitely some times where I will cheese it up a little bit. I think you guys saw recently there was a controversy, which I was a bit surprised that it got quite as controversial as it did. But I made a comment on the whole Megan Thee Stallion, like denial of Martin Brundle or whatever.
And I talked to Seth about that yesterday.
Yeah. So I made, like, it was 80% of the tweet was a joke, like straight up a joke. The whole part about like, oh, you should take a written test to be on the Formula One grid. Of course, I don't think that's realistic. Like, but people took it really seriously. And I'm like, that's interesting. I was just interesting that I don't know. And that's the thing too, is that I don't know if they were trolling. Like, do you really think that I think that, I mean, like, the whole point of the tweet is that, like, my opinion is that celebrities, if they're going to be involved in an auto race, they should have an interest in auto racing, or at least an interest to learn, right? Like, and again, I think Meg Thee Stallion wasn't the problem there. I think it's obviously the bodyguards that were clearly not interested in being there and just wanted to cause trouble. That's the thing. But there have been celebrities in the past. I think it's like Steven Tyler, like singing the national anthem at the Indy 500 that one year was just terrible. There are definitely celebrities who are who are there with good intentions. I mean, like Chris Bosch was a great example. He was at that same race and he's clearly a fan. Like, he clearly understands what's going on. But yeah, like, it's just like dumb stuff. Like, and it's funny because I think we saw it last week when I guess I got the attention of Stuart Haas Racing, which is like, okay, it's interesting that if you get something wrong, I guess I appreciate that when you get something wrong, not only are people paying that much attention to realize, oh, let's, bust this guy's balls a little bit for getting something wrong, but also that kind of states that a lot of times with my opinions and a lot of the stuff I'm able to, I don't want to say break, but talk about that I know are happening behind the scenes. So much of that ends up becoming right that when I get something wrong or something's maybe too early to announce, that the people who I talk about have the respect level to not get mad about it, but to kind of do something that kind of benefits all parties, which is just, do a little bit of an entertaining thing. So I think I think the people who are actually like legitimately mad at me for opinions are a minority. And I think most people get it. I think most people understand like what the deal is, and they respect, I appreciate like respecting opinions, even if you don't agree with them. Like a big part of my channel, to answer your question in a very long way, I think is that it's important to me to have conversations. You don't have to agree with me. And in fact, if everyone who watches my videos is agreeing with me 100% of the time, I'm doing my job poorly. But I want that conversation to happen. I want to challenge you a little bit as a viewer to think about your position on X, Y, or Z issue, and either I will change your mind or I will strengthen your opinion of the situation. And hopefully that is able to get everybody, on a higher plane of understanding about our sport we love so much.
That's so interesting because, like, I feel like so many of us just watch videos and they're like just mindlessly taking in information, and then they don't actually think about things like that. So I appreciate that kind of nugget there. So that, what, in your opinion, what is the best thing and worst thing NASCAR and IndyCar have going for them right now? Let's challenge our viewers here.
Both of them.
What? Was that a Seth question or was that for me?
That was for you.
Oh, that was for me. So best thing, so best and worst thing about NASCAR and IndyCar.
Yeah.
Okay.
That they got going for them right now.
All right. Let's go with IndyCar first. The best thing it has going for it is Roger Penske leading the charge right now. It's very clear that he is every part of the businessman he has claimed to be, or not he has claimed to be, but the people around him have claimed he is. I think he's got everything going in the right direction, especially for the teams. I think you're going to see grids the size of which we haven't seen since before the split, especially at some races outside the Indianapolis 500. So I think Roger Penske is the best thing about IndyCar. But at the same time, I feel that IndyCar is still a little bit complacent. There are some things, I feel like in a lot of ways, they let the tail wag the dog in some respects. I feel like sometimes they don't lead, they don't make decisions that actively push the sport forward. It feels a lot of times like it's the media, or it's the team owners, or it's the manufacturers that are the ones kind of pushing where IndyCar is going. And sometimes I think it would almost be better if IndyCar was a little bit more dictatorial on the competition and like rules side. Like, okay, you want to do hybrids? Well, hybrids were a thing like 10 years ago. Like that was a new thing 10 years ago. What is the technology going to look like in the next 5 years? Are hybrids really the future? I don't know. There's some things that I have some questions on, but we'll have to see. I hope that Roger proves me wrong, and I definitely believe he will. But I would like to see a little bit more active involvement of IndyCar trying to push the sport. And also, I think social media is their big miss, right? I think they're getting better at it, but I also still feel it's not a priority right now. You look at what Formula One is doing, and to a lesser extent NASCAR, like, man, oh man, just it is a chasm between the series that are really, really strong right now and IndyCar, which is gaining strength. There's no doubt about it. And I think there's a great base being set, but to get it to that next level, you gotta learn how to promote in 2021. As for NASCAR,
Now, before you said NASCAR, how does the IndyCar, them kind of being a little bit behind per se in the social media department, how does that affect a guy like you who's, using YouTube, social media as a platform to get out this information and also working in the media in IndyCar?
I think in some ways, so I think there's positives and negatives. Number one, if IndyCar did their own in-house show where they brought in like what Formula One does at the end of the race, where they have Will Buxton and Jack Aitken and whoever that British guy who ran for Renault, I can never remember his name.
Well, that's me. Wearing an F1 shirt and I don't fucking know.
Well, anyway, I'm sure the comments tell us. But if they produce like an in-house show where they could have like a whole studio thing, like I might be in trouble because I'm sure they would have a higher production value than me. But at the same time, I think the fact that they don't have a big social media presence doesn't attract people to IndyCar. So, for example, like I can do Indy 500 practice videos that'll get 40 to 50,000 views a day. But if I go to, and I will be going to races later this year, if I go to, for example, Laguna Seca, if I decided to make that trip and I made a video about Laguna Seca practice, I'd be lucky to get 6,000 views on it. So there isn't really that drive. YouTube is so important. One of the big things on YouTube is having multiple channels bouncing information off of one another, suggesting videos. So when I make a NASCAR video, Eric Estep's also making a NASCAR video, and Darian Gilliam is also making a NASCAR video, and the Iceberg is making a NASCAR video. So all those videos are bouncing off of each other and driving the views up. And then NASCAR is making their own content. So NASCAR is this big thing, and all these related views are going to all of us. Because IndyCar doesn't have a big YouTube presence, and because there is just me, there's me and there's IndyCar. And in a lot of ways, it's more like this. You have the views maybe bouncing between the two, or people are choosing to watch my stuff or they're choosing to watch IndyCar stuff, and that's it. So it's tough. That's a tough thing. And that's a big thing about social media is you need a lot of influential people talking about your thing at the same time to really drum up that kind of social media, that social media circle that really gets people invested. So, to make a short answer a long one, or a long answer a short one, I think, yes, it would benefit me and people like me who wanted to get into covering IndyCar through YouTube if they were a little bit more active on the social media side. But I will say this, and I don't want to just completely shit on them. They are beginning to understand things a little bit better, and I got to give them credit because as you guys mentioned, they have begun credentialing me, which has been fantastic. And there are some great people working in IndyCar. There's no doubt about it. So, I think they just need a little bit of help from further up the food chain to give them a little bit more budget, maybe a few more people. And I think we'd really start seeing some positive movement on that side of things. Now do I have to talk about NASCAR?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, of course.
Okay. So the best thing about NASCAR, I think the best thing about NASCAR is kind of what is the opposite of IndyCar. I think NASCAR does what IndyCar, it's kind of weird because IndyCar does what NASCAR doesn't do well, and NASCAR does what IndyCar doesn't do well. So I think the big thing that NASCAR does is they are forward thinkers. They are, because I've spoken to a few people who work within NASCAR, and when you talk to them, they are looking down the road. They have a game plan, they have a roadmap, and certainly like things get screwed up in between now and then. But you look at like sports betting, way ahead of the curve. There's NASCAR sports betting all over the place. You could bet on races, there's prop bets, all that stuff. Social media, they're on TikTok, they're on YouTube, they're on Twitter, they're on Facebook. They're active on all of these platforms. You look at they're getting there with streaming. They tried to do that that TV show with Kevin James. It didn't work out all that well, but at least they're there. At least they're there. They're trying. Their brand is out there. And that's more than you could say about IndyCar. They also have still traditional TV shows. Now, I think those will go away in the next TV contract. But at the moment, you have on NBC and on Fox 30 to an hour programs on NASCAR weekly. So you can't, it's very hard to miss that NASCAR is going on. If a NASCAR race or even these tests, you know what's going on because they make sure that it's always out in front of your face. You can't get away from it. And so that's something that NASCAR does a really good job of. What they don't do a good job of, and what it looks like we're finally getting some breakthroughs from them, is that they don't have a good racing product. They may have a good product to do what they're trying to do, which is drive traffic to their social media stuff, raise their profile. Like, there's no doubt about it. Like, the playoffs cause fights and wrecks, and there's lots of fights and wrecks getting shared on social media in 10-second intervals. But to me, the problem with NASCAR is kind of born from that as well, is if I don't watch a race, I can watch a 5-minute, even maybe a 2-minute highlight reel and get all of the same entertainment out of the race that I would watching the 4-hour race or a 2-minute highlight reel. I think that's a real big problem. When I invest in a NASCAR race, I invest my time. Time is valuable. I want to watch a race. I want to watch a race that has a start, a middle, and a finish. And I want to see that race play out. And with with some of the changes like the stages, I know there's pros and cons with that, but having guaranteed cautions and things like that, to me, breaks up the flow of the race. And really, I think in a lot of ways, there's really no reason to tune into a race until the final stage because you don't have that flow. And even then, a lot of the final stages of races are so short that there's no strategy involved anymore. It's usually a one stop in the middle, and then that's assuming it goes green. And if there's a yellow, you don't even get a green flag pit stop sequence anymore. I remember when I went to Daytona for the 400, I was actually, crossing my fingers the entire time. It was just like, let's get through the first 2 stages without a big crash, because if there is a big crash in those first 2 stages, they're just going to run around the line the entire time. Thankfully, that didn't happen. And I even got some green flag pit stops, which I was like, hell yeah. But, that's the exception to the rule. I'm sure when I go back to Daytona in February, they are going to tear some shit up. And the race is probably going to suck. It's probably going to be 2013, my guess, especially because all the teams are going to be worried about spare parts and fixing their cars to go to the next race. So I don't know. That's the big problem with me with NASCAR right now, is actually everything that happens on track. Everything outside of NASCAR is great. But when they actually run the race, that's where all the problems happen.
Now,
that's a bad problem to have.
I know. That's the thing. That's the thing that I worry about, is that it's unsustainable, because if you bore the shit out of people, the TV ratings are going to go down. Well, they say, okay, well, let's spice up the show. Let's add some gimmicks, but that just pisses off more people. So I don't know. It's tough. And then if you don't deliver on those fights and wrecks in the playoffs, God forbid we get a playoffs where nothing happens. Like, think about that.
Yeah.
We spent 4 damn weeks talking about Chase and Kevin.
That's what I'm saying.
Ahead, Seth.
What if that didn't happen?
I've always felt that NASCAR paints itself into a corner all the time, because every single advertisement on TV, at least, that you see for NASCAR, the only thing is wrecks, fights, this, that, and the other. And I've always felt that it just keeps pushing that back, because exactly what you're saying, you're going to tune in to, last year, maybe Atlanta, and you're not going to see anything like that. You might see one wreck, blown tire or something. You're not going to see anything like that. And somebody who maybe is just just tuning in for the first time is going to be like, this is not what I was promised. And they're going to tune it off and that's going to be it.
Yeah, no, that's such a great point. And what's funny about what you just said is that until next year, we'll see what happens in Atlanta.
Yeah.
But the old Atlanta was a lot of times the highest rated race in the Jeff Gluck poll because they'd have long green flag runs, comers and goers, green flag pit stops, all the things that traditional NASCAR fans have come to expect. It's crazy, man. It is crazy.
Yeah.
So
do we want to talk about New Atlanta?
I think
yeah.
I think all you need to know about New Atlanta is the fact that they're running the same package that they're running at Daytona and Talladega.
Yeah.
What does that tell you? We're going to be in?
Yeah.
I told him I'm not interested in going anymore.
And
just don't sit low. Don't sit low. That's all I'll say. I would sit way up high.
I told him I'm sitting front row coming out of the dog leg going to one.
I was like, all right, you're sitting alone. I'm going to have to buy a new buddy.
If I'm going to go, that's the way I'm going to go.
You're going out. Yeah. Oh my God. That's what we call the splash zone.
Yeah. Oh Lord.
No,
like
five
next to the dolphin tank.
And we're not
5 rows behind that's the splash zone. The first 5 rows create the splash.
I sat on the front row of Daytona every year. I went to the shootout. I went to Talladega that one time, sat on the front row. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
You're nuts, dude. You are crazy.
Yeah, he thinks that those are the best
top
seats.
row. I sat at the top row for the July race, but one year, and Barb, if you're watching, the great seats, I love you. But God, I hated it. I was like, why? I want to be right there. I want to be right there.
This is the guy that sits front row,
I want to
start,
look
finish.
Harvick in his eyes when he gets turned by Clint Boyer in front of me.
No, this is the guy that sits front row center for the Charlotte Roval. Like all the interesting stuff you cannot see from where he sits.
Okay, so I have had season tickets forever, and you got to keep the same seats. And surprisingly, they're actually really good seats for the Roval. You still see quite a bit. They are great.
Well, you definitely see the finish. Then somebody always turns somebody coming out of that chicane. So
yeah. That brings me to the next point. When the hell are you coming to the Roval?
That's a great question. When is the Roval next year?
October.
Okay, there's nothing going on in October. The only thing I'm worried about is Petit Le Mans. So as long as Petit doesn't fall on that weekend, I should be able to.
When's Petit Le Mans?
I don't know, because they move it all the time. They moved to the middle of goddamn November this year. That was
all right.
Woo! And then I was so crazy. I don't know how I did this. We woke up at like 7 a.m. to go to the race. 10-hour race, froze our nuts off for half the race because it was dark and it was the South and it gets humid and cold there. Then after the race, I drove through the night and went to a Colts game the next day in Indianapolis. I'm nuts.
Dude,
did they even win?
Jarrett.
Did they even win the game?
They did. They beat the Jags, though.
Okay.
It was expected.
So kind
It's funny you say that because Jarrett, we saw him at Richmond and he went to Richmond. Went to the race, saw junior race, did whatever, and then drove back up to what game was he going?
I think
to,
I think it was Cleveland to see Minnesota. I think.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Richmond to Cleveland.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's crazier than Atlanta and Indy.
Yeah, we saw him walking out of the race. I was like, good luck.
Yeah, he was a little inebriated after the race too.
Yeah. And then we have your boy Kyle and Joe going from Knoxville to Indy.
Oh, that was great. That vlog hasn't come out yet. I have seen the vlog. It is worth watching.
So it's edited. Joe's just not putting it up yet.
Yeah. Well, it's almost done.
Joe
has got like the last 2 minutes or so to edit.
Okay.
But I saw a rough cut of it and it is very good. There's a lot of Buddy in it. There's a lot of Buddy.
Oh Lord, there's a lot of Buddy in it. Oh God.
There's a lot of Buddy in it.
I think that leads us to the thing that you promised that weekend. Are you
still? Exactly. Yeah, thank you. I forgot about that, Seth. So David, are you aware that you partially had a hand in making this podcast happen?
Oh no, I did.
So
you sound so disappointed.
This was a couple weeks ago. Or not a couple weeks ago.
Buddy Polly on a safari.
Yeah. I texted David and I was like, hey man, it would be really fun. All right. So this all starts when we're in Indy. I have these ridiculous tiger shorts that I'm wearing, right? And Seth is like, you need a safari hat. And I was looking at bucket hats at Walmart. So I got the one that looked the most like a safari hat.
Yeah. Why didn't you wear it today?
I don't know. It's downstairs. But so we thought, oh, Buddy Pulley Safari, haha. And then we had the idea, what if on David Land on YouTube, we got Buddy running around the Indy 500 like a fucking Walmart brand Rutledge would, which is saying something, interviewing and doing stupid shit for the fun of it, right? I texted David, and David, I don't know if you remember, you did sign off on this happening.
I did think it would be a good idea. I think it would rile some people up, but it would piss the right people off. So I'm fine with it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's perfect because we'll do that. So that then prompted me to be like, Seth, well, fuck David, we could do this on our own. But we would still like to have, a hand in that in May.
Hell yeah. Listen, the month of May is going to be, that is going to be
I'm coming
wild.
This year.
I know. I'm just saying, like, from the perspective of, like, I'm just thinking about it. I'm almost like I need to, like, hire a secretary or something because it's going to be nuts, dude.
I don't do anything. Seth edits the videos. So, I mean,
we're going to get you a little desk in the office here. And
Sweet.
Perfect. Yeah. Yeah. You give me a place to stay. I'll give you a place to stay for the Roble.
We'll stick you in a closet.
Perfect. That's all I need. Been in the closet my whole. No.
Breaking news.
Wow.
That's a
breaking news.
Bleep that out.
You made that bed. You got to lie in it now.
That's a callback to a couple episodes ago from Charlotte. So let's give a shout out to your boy Kyle and my boy Seth on what they do for what we do.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like Kyle. So Kyle, I knew I wasn't going to have him for very long. Thankfully, I'm still going to have him next year, but he's actually been hired full-time to work on a project called Kart Chaser, which is a YouTube show that follows the go-kart scene around. So he's going to be traveling all over the country. He's going to be working for me. He's also going to be working with some drivers. I won't say exactly which ones yet because there's some programs that are unannounced, but he's going to be a busy boy next year. You're going to be one of the hardest working men in racing. So I'm happy to have him, but I also kind of know that I'm not going to have him long-term. I don't think. I think he's going to get hired away from me, and that's totally fine. It's kind of like going on this podcast. Like, I love seeing my friends have success. That's one of the great things about going to like PRI is that I'm able to bring some of my friends in there and introduce them to some people that we know and see if we can't get some things going. Because it would be kind of cool to have a lot of you guys involved in racing. And you trust me, with as many enemies as you can get in racing, it's good to have friends. So it's always good to make friends in racing. That's for sure. And bring some in maybe to kind of bolster your forces.
As they say, keep your friends close, but your enemies toaster.
I don't know what he's talking about.
That's a Trailer Park Boys Rickyism.
Oh my God.
All right, I had to throw something stupid in there anyway.
Oh God. Yeah, so I think back to Buddy Voice Farm. And then that. We'll throw it back. I remember when I first met you, you were like, who the hell is Buddy Pulley? Like, he's not Buddy Lazier. He's not worth my time.
I didn't say that. Oh, no, hang on a second. I wasn't that mean, was I?
No, you didn't. But who the hell was Buddy Pulley it was a thing for a while in our little Skype group that we had. I'm just saying, after the Indy 500, you're going to know who Buddy Pulley is. But the question is going to be, why the hell Buddy Pulley?
Honestly, though, like, because that's the thing that I'm no good at, right, is human interest. Like, I don't give a shit about because I'm always like, why are we throwing it to Rutledge right now? I don't care, man. I don't care about the pregnant woman in section 506. Show the goddamn race. But
you're not a fan of Kim Burton Cam?
Hell no. I don't. You know what? I can see the drivers' wives on Instagram. I don't need to watch them on the race. So no, I don't want to see Kim Burton Cam. I can follow her on Instagram if I want to see her. Yeah, I mean, but there's something to be said about sending some guy with a microphone and a camera out into the snake pit and seeing what he gets. So yeah, I think that could be there. We could have some fun.
I feel like the Indy 500 is so there's so much going on.
There's almost too much going on. It is the biggest. I mean, it's the biggest human gathering, one of the biggest human gatherings in the world, not just a sporting event. It is the biggest sporting event in terms of people showing up, but just in the fact that of how many, you get 500,000 people in one place. Where else do you get that in the entire world? So there's all of these.
My house, New Year's Eve.
Well, there you go. Your house, New Year's Eve. Maybe I'll have to come one of these days, but
yeah,
that's
content.
I don't know if that's I don't know that's YouTube approved these days.
It's not. It's not.
we can find another platform for it.
Continue, David.
No, but I mean, that's just the thing about the Indy 500s. There's so many stories that never get told because so many people have a story to tell that go there. There's always content to be made.
And that's me here to tell that story.
Yeah, you get to be the Kim Burton Cam.
Yes. I'll keep an eye on the Yumco's PR girl.
You said that, not me. He said that.
No.
I want to let the record show that he said that, not me.
You said that shit.
I 100% said that. But you remember in whatever
one
of the
you were
years
simping so hard for that poor girl. You're like, oh man, dude, she's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I was like, well, why don't you go talk to her, man?
She was working.
I'll be honest. I talked to a lot of people at the racetrack who are supposed to be working. So I don't know.
He said that.
No, I did not in that way. Not in that way. But I will say I did do some good networking at PRI.
Anyway, I'm wearing purple socks, by the way.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Love purple.
Unintentional. But yeah.
That's fine, dude. But the best things in my life have been unintentional.
Yeah. Yeah. My life in being here is unintentional.
Most people's. Oh, the Panthers are going to score. No, we're not.
Hold on. Well, anyway.
Let the record reflect the Panthers will not score. I want to talk
Next-Gen.
All right.
Because it was looking doom and gloom there for a while.
Yes.
And now.
Very much so.
Yes. You know probably more than I do. Maybe you don't. I don't know. I don't know anything though. So tell me and everyone else, what are we looking at here? What is it? It's not the fix all, but
yeah, make him reiterate everything he just said in the video 2 days ago.
Well, yeah, exactly.
I mean,
he didn't mention the small blade in that video.
I did.
We'll say that.
I did.
No, you didn't.
There's small blade.
I was looking.
Small blade.
Well, I think when I made the video, they hadn't even tested the small blade yet. I made the video in the middle of the day. As soon as I saw Steve Phelps, it's like, oh yeah, we're going high horsepower. It's like, okay, video time. Mm-hmm. But yes, so it seems like they are in terms of a racing product, it seems like they are going in the right direction. It's amazing. It seems like they're actually listening to somebody, or they at least listen to logic. But I will tell you this, that I think there's going to be we still don't know what's going to happen when 20 of these cars crash Daytona. And I don't want to overstate that point, but until we have a big crash and a big impact, I'm going to be a little bit nervous. They've made some changes to the cars, particularly the front clips, to make them a little bit softer, to make sure that there's more crumple zone, more crush zone to be able to dissipate impact energy. But yeah, so from a safety perspective, who knows? Part supply, I still believe is going to be a little bit of an issue, especially if they crash a lot of cars at Daytona. But I mean, at the same time, I want to keep an open mind. I think we've seen some positive steps in the right direction recently. So I don't want to just completely say that the next gen car is bad, but it's a very important step for NASCAR to take here. And you just hope there's not a major screw up, I would say.
So the supply issue. So they're kind of going the IndyCar approach of getting stuff from different suppliers, different vendors and whatnot. Did IndyCar ever run into this issue as far as like not getting enough parts or being worried about that? Or is that just a NASCAR problem?
They still do. They still do. So the first year of the DW12, which is still the current chassis, but it's been changed a little bit. They definitely struggled to get parts and get cars to people. They had some issues with testing that car, actually, believe it or not, and they had to make some changes, kind of similar to what NASCAR is doing. But even still now, a lot of times the parts that they order for the cars are inconsistent. I know one team that missed the Indy 500 this year had one front wing, and that front wing was just inefficient. And many teams at the Indy 500 will buy 5 or 6. I mean, this sounds ridiculous, but this is what they do. They buy 5 or 6 different front wings, and they go out and test each of the different front wings, and they find out which one is the most efficient for their car because they're just that inconsistent coming out of the factory for whatever reason. So IndyCar still deals with this sort of thing. The thing with NASCAR is that there isn't a part supply base built up. This is a brand new way of doing business. It's a brand new construction of car. In fact, that's something I learned way back at the Brickyard, and eventually finally got to see a bare Next-Gen chassis at PRI to kind of understand what that looked like. But stock cars have been built the same way almost their entire history. And now with this modular chassis design, they are designed differently. The skeleton of the car is different. So it's not like, there's just parts that can be bolted onto the car. They're just sitting in a warehouse somewhere. The vendors are building these parts as quickly as they can. But of course, as we know, there's major supply chain issues in the world right now. So even if the parts are able to be manufactured, there's no guarantee that the raw materials are going to be there and be there in time to create them. So that's going to be the thing, is how much stuff do they tear up in the first few races? And you think about it, Atlanta, I think, is early in the year, right? And that's a new track. That's going to be a pack race like Daytona is. So you're going to have Daytona, Atlanta, and Talladega before May? I don't know, man. You're looking at a pretty, and with the road courses too, the road courses are like a damn plate race now. You tear up so much crap. So I think there's a couple road races at the start of the season. So
especially when a curb flies up.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. Yeah, you know what? You know who made the right decision on that one?
Yeah. So when did you develop telepathic powers to know exactly when that was? No, everybody could kind of see that coming. We didn't know it was going to be that big, but
honestly, one thing I will say about like racing, and people do say like, "Oh, how'd you know that was going to happen?" I mean, like one of the things I think is so advantageous is just like watching old races, and just like understanding the track. Like I don't want to say doing your research, because it sounds like I'm sticking my nose up in the air and thumbing it at people, but like I feel like a lot of people just don't pay attention. Well, but I feel like a lot of people just don't pay attention to tendencies, and like with Larry Mack, trends. Like that's why Larry Mack is so smart, because he goes back and watches film. He remembers things. He pays attention. He's a student of the sport. Those are the best analysts. Those are the best guys and who cover the sport. And in a lot of ways, I try to emulate that. Like when I interview someone, I'm not emulating interviewers who are not very good. I won't name names, but there are a few working in TV these days. But I try to emulate like Gary Gerald or Jerry Punch or Dick Bergeron. I try to be like those guys when I'm talking to drivers, because I know that they were my favorites to watch growing up. I knew that they got the best answers out of the drivers, and they were able to like get them out of that kind of like, that robotic kind of answer the question generically, because most people ask generic questions, things like that.
Yeah. And like, it seems simple to think, we'll just ask an out of the box question to a driver, but like how, I guess when you're in that situation, how is that how do you know, all right, let me ask this question, but I have to phrase it in a certain way, or, how do you maneuver that?
I put myself in the mindset of a racing driver. I think what are they going to want to talk about? What are they interested in? How do you speak their language? I think one of the big things that helped me a lot, and I've got to give a shout out to my bud Colton Herta, doing those streams with him in the last off season, where we would just sit down and watch a race, talking to him and learning how his mind worked, and learning what questions that he would just laugh at and think were stupid that I would ask him, or ones that I would actually get kind of like a good, interesting answer out of. Like, and then I would find out like the things he wouldn't talk about or couldn't talk about. Doing that with him, and again, I owe a lot to him for doing that with me, because it helped me learn how to get inside of a driver's mind and learn what they like to be asked, what they don't like to be asked, and how they think. Because I think a lot of people, and that's one of the reasons I try to, I mean, obviously, like I like going out and driving race cars, and I do have an interest in pursuing that further. But one of the big reasons nowadays that I think it's important for me is to continue to educate myself on what it takes to compete at a high level as a racing driver. And I think a lot of journalists and people who cover the sport have no experience driving anything fast. So it gives you a leg up on, I guess, your competition, even though I don't think a lot of people, we're not like competing in the same way that the race car drivers are. But to me, to get out of that generic question mindset, you have to put yourself in the shoes of the person you are interviewing. And in the unique position that I am in, there are opportunities that present themselves to get very close to what the guys are doing on Sunday, so that hopefully I can bring my viewers the best insight from the guys who are actually doing it for real.
On a more fundamental level, is that kind of what separates people like you from just a regular Twitter user or whatever? Just on a fun.
You're trying to get me in trouble.
Not really. Not really. Just I know. If you scroll through Twitter, you'll just see a whole lot of just generic, shitty opinions a lot of the time. And
right.
I'm willing to take that responsibility for being the one that said that. I don't care. I barely use Twitter.
You know what's so funny about that is I talk to people in the sport a lot these days, and a lot of times I will say a spicy opinion and they'll just kind of nod and say, I can't really talk about that. And I'll go, I said it. It's okay. That was I said that. You didn't say that. I said that.
Yeah.
If you agreed with me, it's okay. I said it.
Yeah.
The word allegedly is your friend.
Yes, allegedly. But I think, you're right. That's the thing, is that I really truly care and try to understand the sport. And I think a lot of generic Twitter people, and there's nothing wrong with being a casual fan, and there's nothing wrong with being someone who's new to the sport, but there's a lot of people who don't quite understand the intricacy. Like with any sport, there are a lot of people who don't understand football who were at the game with me last night and screaming and yelling about it. Right. So that's okay. Like there's nothing wrong with people, having an opinion that may be wrong or may be incorrect for one reason or another. But I will say this, there's a reason I get paid to do what I do, and they don't get paid for their tweets.
Yeah. There's a billion people out there that don't understand football who think they know everything. So
it seems like there's people who cover racing who don't exactly know much about racing.
You said that, not me.
Yeah, David Land. Buddy Pulley said that.
I will say that there are, I can definitely confirm to you that there are definitely some people who don't even watch the race. I'll just put it that way.
That report on it?
Yeah.
I didn't say that. What do you say? That was your words. You said that, not me.
I can take that.
You said that.
It's certainly from the outside. It certainly appears that way. Decent.
You could probably guess. You could probably guess.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Reddit.
No. Not. Yeah. I forgot what the hell I was going to ask. We'll just go right here. We love Kyle. Well, Seth loves Kyle Larson. I want to talk to you about Kyle Larson just real quick because no one talks about him enough, right?
I don't think I have the voice to do the thing, by the way, so don't ask me.
Yeah, it's cool. We got it.
We already did the thing, though, remember?
Is he really the next AJ Foyt, Mario Andretti? Like,
yeah.
What do you see in him that separates him from like a Kyle Busch or like a Scott Dixon who hasn't done too much outside of their comfort zone, who've dabbled in things, but things like that, who are in the top echelon of their respective motorsport?
Absolute desire to win and the ability to win. I mean, I watched a dirt race. I mean, and I'm sure if you've gone to a dirt race that has Kyle Larson in it, there's a pretty good chance you've seen him win a dirt race. And when I saw him win the BC 39 out here at the Speedway, just unbelievable. He started like 5th or 6th and just drove right up through the field and no one was touching him. I mean, he made an incredible pass for the lead on, I think it was Brady Bacon. And it was just, I mean, Larson is the kind of guy that we used to get quite a bit more in American racing. A guy who can win in a stock car, win in an open wheel car, win in a modified, win in anything. I mean, it's amazing that he can just go out there and just drive the wheels off of most any car, and has a willingness to go out there and drive most any car.
Why don't we see? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no. Why don't we see more of it?
Yeah. Why don't we see that more? Is it contracts? Is it sponsor? Like what's holding drivers back?
Contracts. And I think, like you said, comfort zones. I mean, Scott Dixon has paid an awful lot of money. I mean, he's paid a ridiculous amount of money. And I think
how much money? No.
I don't know how much it is, but I suspect it's in the millions of dollars, probably more than that.
Yeah.
And he's for good reason. Like Chip is going to keep him around but he does what Chip tells him to do. And Chip doesn't have a sprint car team, right? So he never could put Scott Dixon in a sprint car, but you will see Scott Dixon in a sports car because Chip Ganassi has a sports car team. That's not to say that I think Scott Dixon has a whole lot of desire to go dirt racing, or, you look at Kyle Busch, and Kyle Busch, I think in a lot of ways, I think Kyle Busch is almost more of a contract situation than Dixon is. I think Joe Gibbs is very protective of his drivers. There was a point where Busch had an Indy 500 ride with a sponsor lined up, and Joe Gibbs told him no. So I don't know who it was. I suspect it was honestly, I think it was M&M's, but I don't know for sure.
Who was the team?
I think it was Andretti. I think it was ultimately so that would have been for the 2017 500. So I think it might have been the seat that eventually became Fernando's, because then they got Stephen Wilson, and then it was Jack Harvey.
Touchdown.
And then they moved.
Sorry.
Oh, by the way,
what the hell?
Are the Steelers still getting their asses kicked by the Titans?
I have no idea. I'm just watching the Panthers barely keep up here with the Bills. I'm not sure. Anyway,
just run the ball against the Bills. That's how you beat them.
They've been trying.
But yeah, I mean, I think, but Kyle Larson, I think, is a generational talent. And I think, barring anything that kind of stops his career short, I think he's going to be, right up there in the conversation with AJ and Mario.
Now, in your opinion, do you think he absolutely has to do the Indy 500 to kind of cement that?
Yes.
Does he need to win it?
Yes. No, but yes.
I mean, we look at Tony Stewart kind of in that conversation too, and he never won the Indy 500.
Yeah.
But he did run it and was competitive and could have won it under the right circumstances.
Yeah. Well, obviously that's going to separate separates Tony from AJ, Tony from Mario.
Absolutely. There's kind of a second tier that I would put guys like Tony and Robbie Gordon and a few others in that kind of tier. But I would say Tony's definitely kind of the leader of that sect. Tony would have, I think, under different circumstances, particularly if NASCAR hadn't been as profitable as it was when he was running, because I think Tony definitely would have run NASCAR, probably would have won championships in NASCAR. But if his contract hadn't been, again, Gibbs, if his contract hadn't been so restrictive, I think he would have probably run the Indianapolis 500 a lot more. And you look at the last time he ran, it was with Chip, and he was one pit lane collision away with Michael Andretti from really kind of winning the thing. So, and they never came back. So, but I do think, if Larson runs the Indy 500, but you look at it too, he's won the Knoxville Nationals. He's won the Chili Bowl. He's won all these other races outside that I don't
Rolex
think AJ
24.
or Rolex 24. Well, AJ won that one.
Well, yeah.
But it's
just
like,
as far as races, yeah.
Yes. So, but the thing is, like, you look at AJ, and there's still a few things so Larson, I think, to kind of be in that conversation, I think he needs to win multiple cup championships. So if he puts up 5 or 6 or 7 or maybe more championships, I think that equals out with a few of maybe a couple Indy 500 wins. So then you're starting to look at, okay, AJ has 4 Indy 500 wins. Mario only has 1, but Mario also won the Formula One World Championship, which is a major accomplishment. So Larson's got a way to go, but he's the closest thing that we've ever had. And it's clear that he's the guy who can do it from this crop of drivers right now. But again, like you said, I think, yes, he's got to run the Indy 500 and he's got to be competitive in the Indy 500. Yeah. And I don't know how interested he is in the Indy 500, to be honest with you. I think he's given some polite answers on it. I think he does have some interest, but I don't think it's like a burning desire like maybe it was for Tony or Robbie Gordon or a few other guys who are real crossover masters and wanted to actually be there every year if they could.
It's interesting because, I was just about to ask you, you think he would run it here next year and the year after?
I hope so.
Yeah, I mean, because, it seems like Roger wants him there. Everybody wants him there, right? But it's interesting that you say he doesn't seem like he has that burning desire to do so.
Yeah.
But,
Kyle Larson doesn't. He's got a really good poker face, though, so we don't really know.
That's true, too.
That's very true.
And he keeps lying to people and saying that he hadn't been talking to Rick Hendrick the whole time he was suspended. But
well, he had to do that.
Yeah, I know.
But yeah, no, I mean, Roger gave a talk at the PRI breakfast, and one of the things that he said, and it was very quick when he said it, not a lot of people caught it, but he was talking about the dirt race, the BC 39, the midget race at IMS, and one of the things he said, boy, that Larson's real good, and then he was like, we got to get him in a speedway car one of these days. It was really quick, but you have to realize what a speedway car means to an older person like Roger. That's an Indy car. Mm-hmm. And when he says so that's Roger talking about maybe IndyCar, because that would also mean my suspicion is, and we can't discount here that Larson in a Penske Indy 500 car is literally the dying wish of the great Robin Miller.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see how it goes. But I definitely think that there is potential there, especially with Larson winning the championship. I think you look at the Peretta Autosport thing last year as a good kind of key. I don't remember exactly when Peretta was announced. I think it was early January. So that was essentially a 5th Penske car for the 500 last year. I would look at that as the latest we're going to know whether or not Kyle Larson is going to do the 500. So mid-January, I think we'll find out if Penske is going to do a 4th for the 500 or not. And past that point, it's just too late to announce any kind of a legitimate Indy 500 effort. I think you get a few entries kind of late, but those are teams that are usually going to be fighting it out for the final row. You're not going to be seeing a Penske car announced in April.
Wasn't Fernando kind of announced relatively late?
It was, yeah. But the reason it was because the program was already ready to go. They had Jack Harvey and Stephen Wilson. Jack Harvey was actually going to drive Fernando's car, and they moved Jack Harvey over to the Michael Shank racing team where Wilson was going to run so that Fernando could run for Andretti. And then they said, Stefan will pay for you to run next year. And that's how that all kind of worked out.
Okay. Gotcha.
So the team was already there. McLaren just kind of came in and brought a few people as well. But it was really kind of, it was very easy for him to kind of slot into that from his perspective anyway.
Okay.
Would
Gotcha.
Kyle have needed to do a test already though, in theory?
No. I mean, they could do what they did with Fernando, which is give him a special day. There's still a tire test in April where there's a 2-day test at the Speedway. So he could theoretically get 3 days of full testing to do his rookie tests and then kind of get up to speed before the month of May even begins. Yeah. So, and then he would have a week of practice. If you think about it, how many races has Kyle Larson won in the Cup Series side of things with no practice this year? I don't think it's quite as, so I don't think it's quite, I mean, he would be learning something new, but he's got the talent level that a week of practice would get him up to speed really quickly.
Yeah.
Gotcha. It would be 10 days. So let's see, they'd probably give him a special test day. So that's one. You have 2 days with the tire test. Then you got Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Assuming he qualifies on Saturday, then you got a special practice session on Sunday, which you could theoretically run at least an hour of and then fly to Texas for the All-Star race. Then you've got a Monday practice session and carb day. There's 10 days of practice before the 500. So if he could do it, he would have enough track time.
I would really hope NASCAR would let him not run the All-Star race to do this if he needed it. But
I think NASCAR would be very lenient on that one, especially considering he won it last year. And quite honestly, do they really want the same guy to win the All-Star race twice in a row?
Unless
3 times that he's entered.
Unless it's Chase, right? Yeah, that would be the.
Well, I mean, I got a million other things to ask. We're not gonna keep you forever. Seth, you got anything else for?
Do you want to do the Reddit comments?
Yeah, I mean, of course. This is anything legit.
He's really gonna put me in a bad mood right before we go.
Yeah, I didn't want to do it at the beginning because pissed off.
Well, you would have got me pissed off, and I just would have been mad the whole time. It would have been.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm smarter than I look, dude.
Some of these. So some of these are making fun of you, and some are making fun of the Reddit community about you, like your reaction to you. Okay. So here's one of those. It says, David Land exists r/IndyCar. And I took that personally.
Dude, yeah, that is honestly true. Like I mean, I hear that from I think you guys talk about me, like, you guys are my friends, and I hear this from Joe sometimes, and he will say things like, wow, people really hate you just for existing. I'm like, do you guys just sit around and talk about wow, look how much hate David's getting these days? It's fascinating, man.
It's just because it's hilarious.
It
honestly.
is.
Yeah.
We know you, so it's like you're not a dick most of the time. So
most of the time. Listen, we all have our moments.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can't. Yeah.
Here's one of my favorite ones. It says, David Land, his source. Trust me, bruh. Here's a really funny one. It says, David Land, it's my understanding that DCR will possibly have 3 cars, possibly 2 full-time and 3 for half a season, or possibly 3 full-time. Here's how I feel it's going to go. r/IndyCar. David Land just swore a blood oath to the ghost of Tony Holman that DCR will have 3 full-time cars, come hell or high water.
By the way, I believe I was talking about last year.
Yeah, I think so.
Show me the fucking lie, you jackasses. Dale Coyne did 2 full-time cars and 1 part-time.
So you did swear a blood oath to the ghost of Tony Holman. I did swear a
blood oath to Tony Holman, yeah, fuckers.
Oh my God.
Oh, shit. Well, that one did piss me off because it was right. Believe it or not, it's
Maybe
not just
two trusted
people do tell me things. God damn. All right.
Oh, man. Let me find it. Let me find my other favorite one and we can be done with this. Hang on. Here we go. He's an ass, but he sometimes has good info.
I mean, again, show me the lie.
Okay, I lied. There's one more. Here's one from 2 years ago. It says, I liked him.
This will be good.
I liked him until Xbox made him think he could competitively race go-karts at Indy in real life. I'm pretty damn good at iRacing, but I know full well I couldn't get behind the actual wheel and be competitive.
Damn.
Hold on a second.
Maybe I shouldn't have read that one.
So, okay. So you, Mr. Play Video Games, I actually went out and put my real body on the line to go drive.
That's a good body too.
Continue to play. I know. Look at this. Oh. But you
dad bod from hell.
Oh, hell yeah.
That's holding.
I love it. Dude, the ladies love a dad bod. It's totally in right now. Now, let me tell you something. iRacing jackass.
Guy from 2 years ago.
Who probably doesn't remember that at all.
Who probably doesn't remember that comment.
Will not see this video.
Listen, you go drive a real race car and then come back to me. You know, that's the thing. That's what I don't understand is that people. So like you go out and you put something together and you make something happen and people shit on you for making it happen. Like,
yeah, God forbid you try.
I don't understand that. You know, it's like, but that's a big thing about YouTube is like, and one of the things I tell myself is like, you can't be afraid of success. Like sometimes I used to like wonder, like, should I do a video on this? Should I really talk about this? Should I say this? And I realized as I go on, like, there's nothing wrong with pissing people off. Like, because guess what? I bet you that guy still watches my videos. Doesn't matter if he doesn't like me anymore because because I went out of my way. I paid $800 to buy a motor so that my friends could put that motor in a 12-year-old go-kart and we could go run Indianapolis. Gee, I'm sorry. Well, I'm sorry that wasn't lame enough for you.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's not like you lose money if somebody dislikes the video instead of likes it, right?
Oh, absolutely not. Like,
yeah.
I mean, a hate view pays the same as the regular view. And that's the thing, you know, man, you know, you get hate online and I'll tell you, it is definitely tough sometimes to deal with it. There's no doubt about it because you go, oh my God. But then you kind of like go out in the real world, you decompress a little bit and you realize, okay, hey, I'm in a great position here. And you look at a lot of the people, you know, some people, you know, they're public, you know, kind of some of the people because you've seen them who are fans of mine and interact with me. And there's some people behind the scenes that I know of that blow my effing mind that watch my stuff and support me. I realize that I look at the people that I respect, who respect what I do and respect my opinions and my understanding of auto racing. And I realize, okay, so if all these people like what I do and tell me they think that I know my stuff and I respect what they do, I don't respect these people who are just anonymous on the internet. And I shouldn't even pay attention to their opinions because ultimately a lot of the people within the sport seem to think that I'm doing a good job. So that's all I can really say there. And I know I'm being a pompous ass, but I mean, sometimes you have to just remind yourself of those sort of things because, again, I'm in a very privileged position to do what I do and talk to the people that I talk to. And I try to, I try to live life to the fullest. I try to take advantage of my position. And, sometimes you may not like where my path takes me, but honestly, you're still going to watch.
Yeah. And sometimes to be in this kind of business, you kind of got to put your ass on the line and just do some shit, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, that's entertainment. No. I mean, honestly, like, again, kind of going back to like putting yourself in a race car mindset. And by the way, that's why you go and do a go-kart race and get your ass kicked so you can put yourself in that mindset. But putting yourself in that mindset, no risk, no reward, right? If you don't take a risk, if you don't make a video that has a spicy opinion or a video that you know might piss some people off or a video where you say something before somebody wants it out and if you never take a risk, you will not get anywhere. I know some people who are like this, where they just will not take a risk, period, about anything. And it costs them jobs. It costs them opportunities, because I look at that and they tell me, oh, I almost wrote a story about this and then I didn't. Well, if you had broken that news, your name would have been out there. But now, because it isn't out there, you're wondering why you're not getting any employment opportunities. I don't know. It's weird sometimes, but that's what sets some people apart from other people, I guess, is that you just have to be able to, not always just take risks, because, as we know in racing, the people who take risks usually end up in a casket. But you can't always take risks, but you have to know how to take a risk. And sometimes that risk pays off and sometimes it doesn't. But more often than not, I find the risks I take, I'm glad I took them.
It's kind of like poker. You got to kind of calculate your risks.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the old Wayne Gretzky quote: "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take."
It's so true, though.
Exactly.
It's so true.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, it's been a hell of a ride. I think you're doing awesome, dude. Like, I mean, I've known you since for, I don't know how long, 7-8 years. It seems like now, since we were on Robbie's diecast reviews, giving opinions on diecast, and now here we are.
Robbie Noonan.
Robbie Noonan. So I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's pretty cool to see where you're at now, and I appreciate the content you put out, and I appreciate you coming on today, and also just let it be known that I did beat you at go-karts at one time.
Dude, K1 Speed. All my homies hate K1 Speed, man.
Dude, we went to the one in Charlotte. That place sucks.
You know what? You know what the problem is? And you know what's sad? Okay, this is the saddest thing ever. Like, okay, so K1, like, we know why it's not very fun, because it's electric carts and they mess with the power. They've ruined Sarah Fisher's place. I hate to break it to you.
What?
Yeah. Sarah, they reconfigured the track and they geared the go-karts down. So now the carts are flat out the entire way around, and they're running on the rev limiter halfway around the lap.
This is since we went in August.
Yeah.
Wow.
We didn't go to K1 in August.
No, we went to Sarah Fisher's place, though.
We went to SIK.
Oh, okay. Yeah, got you.
Yeah. They've ruined it. They've ruined it. Except for the oval's still good. The oval's still the oval.
Yeah.
The road course is poopy doo-doo now.
Maybe I'd have a chance then. Dude, I was so damn slow. It was bad.
Well, we need to go to what's that place out in Newcastle?
Newcastle Motorsports Park. So,
Yeah.
Okay. So we do that the day before the 500 every year.
All right.
We all go out there. We get a big group. We have like 20 people. We all go out on the track. It's amazing.
Hell yeah. All right. Cool. Sounds
But
great.
you got to be suited and booted. You got to have a helmet. You got to have a suit, because those carts are about 80% of what I raced. So they're about 80% to a real racing go-kart. They're just a little bit less powerful. But like the grip, they react the same way. They grip the same way. They go through corners the same way. They will bite you the same way. I mean, so every year we see someone total a cart when we go to Newcastle for the 500. Yeah. Because you get people who are like, oh, rental carts. Cause I've been to the place where they give me a rev limiter and K1, where they turn the power down. Then they put somebody on a real racetrack and real, with a cart with no fenders over the wheels, and they start touching tires and flying over each other. And it's like, well, so that's
we're gonna have to be careful then.
Well, I mean, I think you guys have some driving competence. I mean, we there's literally like, people who definitely
Joe Schmoes. Yeah. Some people from Twitter, but yeah.
Damn it, they know exactly what they're doing. Don't tell them otherwise.
Yeah, God bless, man. Back in the olden days, man, they've running, no AC and nothing but a seat cushion and a fucking baseball cap to run in. So
they were real men.
Richard Petty was a little water towel he'd keep in his mouth.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, only real men do that. These guys aren't real men nowadays. Two things I just thought about, because why not? Who's the best up and coming talent that you see in any racing that maybe we don't know the name of?
Oh man, you really put me on the spot there.
Yeah.
Up and coming. I mean, I think Ernie Francis Jr. is one to watch. He's going to run Indy Lights for Penske this year. Of course, he won an SRX race, so I think a lot of people know him now. But I think, I've talked with some friends, and we're kind of thinking that he could be kind of a Jeff Gordon type, where he not only has the driving talent, but he also has kind of like the PR, golden boy sort of thing. So Ernie Francis is one I kind of look at. I think Kyle Kirkwood on the IndyCar side, he's the Indy Lights champion. He's going to drive for Foyt this year. I think he's a guy to watch out for. Let me think really far down the ladder. Is there anybody that I know who's really, I've kind of got my eye on? I'm really thinking about this. I don't know. I kind of like a guy in USAC. He's from my hometown. I was really impressed with him at the BC 39 is Emerson Axum, who's a USAC midget sprint car guy. He's from Franklin, Indiana. I was impressed with his driving when I saw him at the BC 39. So I'll throw his name out there just because I'm going to be a homer.
Nice. What impressed you?
Driving talent. I mean, he was fifth behind Larson, Bacon, I think Dave Darland and somebody else. So it was like, these
stacked.
were big. Yeah, it was a stacked field. He ran fifth, and he came out of like the B main. So, he was really impressive driver. So I think, I don't know. The problem is where do you go if you're in USAC outside of just going to USAC or going to like World of Outlaws? Is there a path to kind of the big series anymore? Probably not, but I think he's a talented kid.
Awesome. Well, Seth, you got anything else?
No, not really.
All right, cool. All right. Well, David, like I said, thank you for coming on. It's awesome to see what you're doing and appreciate you coming on here and talking to us, bunch of, nobodies, but you're a good friend and it's good to see you having success.
I appreciate you guys having me, and thank you for the kind words, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. And my mom watches your videos now after meeting you. So you got a new viewer.
I love it.
Yeah.
She's a part of my 5% female audience. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. You got her, and then she also watches Darian too.
All right.
Yeah.
She just likes Darian's hair.
Did she meet Darian?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
She touched his hair.
That's right.
Buddy, your camera.
Yeah, I know. I'm 20%. All right. Anyway, that's all I got. Been better small blade. David Land. It has been a David Land video.
Oh man.